Mr. President, shortly, Senate Republicans will confirm the nomination of Pam Bondi to serve as Attorney General and lead the Department of Justice in the new administration. Yesterday, I came to the Senate floor to discuss the Trump administration's decision to purge Department of Justice officials and warn that Ms. Bondi's record suggests that she will aid in this effort to pack Department of Justice with loyalists seeking retribution against President Trump's political rivals. Since the Watergate era, there has been bipartisan support for the principle that the Department of Justice investigations and prosecutions must be independent from the White House. Over the years, both Republicans and Democrats have asked many individuals seeking the office of Attorney General one basic question: will you be willing to tell the President no? Given that Ms. Bondi, when speaking about President Trump's criminal indictments, threatened to, quote, "the prosecutors will be prosecuted and the investigators will be investigated," I have serious doubts about her willingness to really say no to this president. This concern is even more pressing because over the last 16 days, the Trump administration has purged dozens of senior career law enforcement officials at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. This purge has been particularly focused on dedicated, nonpartisan prosecutors and investigators working in the National Security Division and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. On its first day, the Trump administration removed or reassigned as many as 20 experienced professionals with invaluable national security expertise without any comparable replacements, including the veteran career Deputy Assistant Attorney Generals in the National Security Division. These are men and women that we have entrusted with the responsibility to keep America safe. They were summarily dismissed by this new president just days into his administration. Those who have been reassigned are reportedly being put in roles concerning immigration enforcement, for which they have little expertise. Mr. President, we had a hearing this morning about fentanyl and talked about some 70,000 Americans each year losing their lives to this terrible drug. We're all concerned and expressed it at this hearing that some of the very people who are working in drug enforcement are going to be removed and put into mass deportation of immigrants. We've said over and over again that if the president is setting out to do what he promised he would do, he needs more personnel to get it done, or he'll have to cut back invaluable functions of our law enforcement community at the risk of endangering the families and businesses in America. Since that warning, dozens more senior officials have been removed. At the FBI, at least 6 FBI executive assistant directors, or EADs, have been removed, including the EADs who oversee the National Security Branch, Intelligence Branch, and the Criminal Cyber Response and Services Branch. The Trump administration has also removed special agents in charge of at least 4 major field offices and the assistant director of the Washington field office. The acting attorney general has also issued a memo firing dozens of career DOJ prosecutors, stating, and I quote, "Given your significant role in prosecuting the president, I do not believe that the leadership of the department can trust you in implementing the president's agenda faithfully." The Trump administration has even asked line attorneys and agents to retire, resign, or be fired simply for handling tasks linked to the investigation of President Trump or prosecution of his misconduct. The acting FBI director informed the entire FBI workforce that he was reviewing the files of, quote, "all current and former FBI personnel assigned at any time to investigations and or prosecutions relating to January 6th and related terrorism and unrelated terrorism cases." Mr. President, if you're a student of history, you know that when the communists took over the Soviet Union, one of the things that they gloried in doing was rewriting history, trying to make the bad chapters, the embarrassing chapters, the sad chapters different, so the future generations never were really quite sure what happened. That is exactly what's going on about January 6, 2021. Despite the graphic video evidence of what happened on that day, when this insurrectionist mob tried to take control of this Capitol and stop the transfer of power from Donald Trump to Joseph Biden, despite the clear evidence to the contrary, they continue to believe that this is a hoax, that somehow these were just tourists coming by the Capitol. Those of us who were there, those of us who remember the danger that was brought by these mobsters and thugs, know that that's a lie. And now they're going through the Department of Justice and saying, if you were involved in prosecuting any of these people who beat up on the policemen in this building, tore down the structures, broke the windows, if you were involved in any prosecution involving them, you're not welcome at the Department of Justice. They want to rewrite history. They want future generations to believe the lie that they have perpetrated about what happened on that day. Those of us who were there will never forget it and what actually did happen. The interim U.S. Attorney for D.C. also ordered an internal review of staff handling cases to January 6th, moved to dismiss all pending charges against those defendants, and has already fired dozens of prosecutors and investigators who worked these cases. The people who were spared by the pardon of Donald Trump include individuals who were dangerous. One had a record of 38 convictions for crimes, and they're now back out on the streets. Over the past weekend, thousands of FBI personnel across the country were told to complete a questionnaire that asked a series of questions about their involvement in the prosecution or investigation of January 6th. This shameless partisan retribution is only the beginning. It has been reported that the future FBI director, Kash Patel, if he is chosen by the Senate, will be guided by an advisory committee composed of solely partisan political operators, including an associate of Elon Musk. Elon Musk, who elected him? By what authority does he have any voice in the administration of our government? Why should he or his minions have access to the private records of American citizens? It's happening. These actions will cripple FBI field offices and U.S. attorneys' offices across the country by increasing the caseload for the remaining agents, dramatically slowing down critical investigations and prosecutions. And the Trump Department of Justice is taking this partisanship beyond the president's personal grievances, as many as there may be. They are already dropping criminal investigations against the president's allies, such as Congressman Andy Ogles. They also have begun systematically stripping the Department of Justice of vital, substantive expertise by reducing personnel from the law and policy sections of various divisions, such as the Environment and Natural Resources Division, which pursues polluters who poison our communities. As America faces a heightened threat landscape, these shocking removals and reassignments of hundreds of employees deprive the Department of Justice and the FBI of experienced leadership and decades of experience fighting violent crime, espionage, and terrorism. For years, my Republican colleagues have claimed they, quote, back the blue and accused Democrats of being soft on crime. We've heard it over and over and over. But now, as President Trump is gutting our nation's law enforcement agencies and putting our national security at risk, my Republican colleagues do not complain. They're nowhere to be found. Instead of condemning these actions, they will likely come to the Senate floor tonight and confirm an individual to lead the Department of Justice who is in lockstep with this policy of President Trump and was chosen for the role specifically because she's loyal. More than anything else, she is loyal. I urge my colleagues to consider what a danger President Trump and Pam Bondi present to this nation. I will oppose their confirmation and hope my colleagues will do the same. I would also say, Mr. President, that letters went out today asking for further hearings on Kash Patel. Mr. Patel, I've been reading his response to the questions for the record QFR, and I can tell you they raise more questions than they answer. He has an attitude, and to think that this man will be in charge of 38,000 FBI agents and personnel, 400 field offices across the nation and around the world, is going to have the authority to investigate those whom he chooses, is frightening. His message in politics is get even. I read his book. It's called Government Gangsters. And this book, in specific detail, talks about his view of politics. He has a long list of grievances, political and personal, and he plans to get even. That is not the kind of person we need in charge of the FBI. He has no experience to point to any significance which qualify him for this job. We have had many directors of the FBI chosen for long periods of time because of our change of the law. We now have a 10-year period of service for the director of the FBI, and we also do our best to make sure that they are apolitical, since they bridge various administrations, not just one or two. That is part of the law, and that is the reason we did it. Now we're going to put a man in that position who has no experience, no background, and a political chip on his shoulder. I'm afraid that is just a recipe for disaster. I urge my colleagues to think twice about Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. This is not what we should expect or want from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice. Mr. President, I yield the floor.